Hi, welcome again to another topic in the series of lectures in civil procedure. Our topic for today is pre-trial under Rule 18 of the revised rules on civil procedure. Okay. Now, um, what when is the pre-trial conducted? It is conducted within 60 calendar days from the filing of the last responsive pleading. So if you have a reply, the pre-trial is conducted within 60 days from receipt of the court of the reply. So what is pre-trial? Why is it important? Pre-trial is important because it serves as a map of the trial. So you already have a summary of the issues to be resolved by the court. You also have a summary of the witnesses to be presented by both parties. The pre-trial is also the time to discuss if there is a possibility of settling the issues in the case amicably. And you also have a summary of the witnesses to be presented by both parties. So it practically makes uh, a map of the how the trial will go because you have a summary of the issues, you have a summary of the witnesses. Okay, you also have a schedule of the trial itself. Okay, so what is the nature and purpose of pre-trial? Okay, the topics or the uh, to be discussed during the pre-trial conference are as follows. The possibility of an amicable settlement or of a submission to alternative modes of dispute resolution. So this is the time when the case or the parties are referred to a court-annexed mediation where the mediator will discuss in detail and discuss the possibility of arriving at a possible settlement without the case being needed to go to trial. Simplification of issues, the possibility of obtaining stipulations or admissions of facts and documents to avoid unnecessary proof. So if you will just make use of pre-trial, then a lot of unnecessary proceedings will be avoided. Okay? Because by stipulating or admitting certain facts, then that dispenses with proof. Okay? So it actually shortens the proceedings in the trial. Limitations of the number and identification of witnesses and the setting of trial dates. Advisability of a preliminary reference of the issues to a commissioner. So if it will entail the examination of long accounts or voluminous documents, there are certain issues that can best be referred to a commissioner. This is also the time to discuss it. The propriety of rendering judgment on the pleadings or summary judgment or dismissing the action should a valid ground therefore be found to exist. That is the reason why there are only four cases in which a motion to dismiss may be allowed. Res judicata, litis pendentia, lack of jurisdiction over the subject matter, and prescription. All the other uh, grounds are no longer grounds for dismissal. Why? Because you can just submit it for a judgment on the pleadings or a summary judgment. Example, lack of jurisdiction over the person of the defendant. You can raise it, okay, as an affirmative defense in your answer. You don't need to set it for hearing, but during the pre-trial, it can be one of the matters that can be brought up. And you can um, move for a summary judgment or a judgment on the pleadings. Okay? Um, the requirement for the parties to mark their respective evidence. This is the function also of pre-trial. You mark the evidence, examine and make comparison of the adverse parties' evidence, record the stipulations regarding the faithfulness of the reproductions and genuineness and due execution of the adverse parties' evidence, reservation of evidence which are not yet available, for testimonial evidence, giving the name, position, nature, and testimony of the proposed witness. For documentary evidence, by giving the particular description of the evidence. No reservation will be allowed if not made in the manner described above. Failure without just cause of a party and counsel to appear during pre-trial despite notice shall result in the waiver of any objection to the faithfulness and reproductions marked or their genuineness and due execution. The failure without just cause of a party and or counsel to bring the evidence required shall be deemed a waiver of the presentation of such evidence. There is a duty on the part of the court to set the case for pre-trial within 5 days from receipt of the last pleading. Okay, so the setting of the pre-trial must be within 60 calendar days. Okay, remember always that pre-trial is mandatory for both civil and criminal cases. Its purpose is to abbreviate the proceedings in court. In civil cases, when there are voluminous documents, a preliminary conference may be set for the marking of the voluminous documents. Now, what is the purpose of pre-trial? It serves to clarify and limit the basic issues between the parties and to take the trial of cases out of the realm of surprises and maneuvering. In other words, you lay all your cards on the table so as to shorten the trial. Okay, we have the case of LCK Industries versus Planters Development Bank. So in this case, petitioner obtained a loan, okay, from planters. Now, as security for the loan, petitioner Lim executed a mortgage over 2 parcels of land. However, for failure to pay their obligation, the Planters Bank extrajudicially foreclosed the Baguio City property and it was sold as at public auction. Now, planters further caused the extrajudicial foreclosure of another property in Quezon City. Now, an action to annul the foreclosure of the Quezon City property was filed by LCK. The RTC conducted a pre-trial conference. The parties agreed to submit the case for decision of the RTC based on the stipulations and admissions made during the pre-trial conference. For failure of the petitioners to promptly raise the alleged overpayment, there is an allegation of overpayment. The RTC is now barred from adjudicating the said issue. Pre-trial is a procedural device intended to clarify and limit the basic issues and to take the trial of cases out of the realm of surprises. It thus paves the way for a less cluttered trial and resolution of the case. The main objective of pretrial is to simplify, abbreviate, and expedite the trial or totally dispense with it. It is primarily intended to make certain that all issues needed for the disposition of the case are properly raised. To obviate the element of surprise, the parties are expected to disclose at the pretrial conference all issues of law and fact they intend to raise at the trial. A pretrial order is not meant to be a detailed catalog of each and every issue that is to be or may be taken up during the trial. Issues that are impliedly included or may be inferable by necessary implication are as much integral parts of the pretrial order as those that are expressly stipulated. So in other words, do you need to enumerate all the issues in the pretrial order? Are you only limited to the issues enumerated in the pretrial order? The answer is no. Under the LCK case, okay, the Supreme Court said that issues that are impliedly included may be inferable from the issues listed in the pretrial order are integral parts of the pre-trial order as those that are expressly stipulated. It would be absurd for the company to knowingly disregard or deliberately abandon the issue of non-payment of the premium on the policy, considering that it is the very core of its defense. The fact of overpayment, although not expressly included in the issues raised in the pretrial order, can be evidently inferred from the stipulations and admissions made by the parties. Even only upon plain reading of the pretrial order, it can be readily discerned that there was an overpayment. Okay. Now, what is the effect of failure to appear? We already know that pretrial is mandatory and the parties and counsels are required to be present during the pretrial conference. Now, what is the effect if the parties and or his counsel fails to appear during the pretrial conference? Okay. It shall be the duty, section 4 of Rule 18 states that it is the duty of the parties and their counsel to appear at the pretrial, court-annexed mediation, and judicial dispute resolution. Remember that pretrial does not only consist of the pretrial proper. It also court annexed mediation as well as judicial dispute resolution is also part of the pretrial proceedings. So there is a duty on the part of the parties as well as their counsel to attend those proceedings. The non-appearance of a party and counsel may be excused only for acts of God, force majeure, or duly substantiated physical inability. A representative may appear on behalf of a party but must be fully authorized in writing to enter into amicable settlement, to submit to alternative modes of dispute resolution, and to enter into stipulations and admissions of facts and documents. Now, when duly notified, the failure of the plaintiff and counsel to appear without valid cause when required shall cause the dismissal of the action. So that is the consequence if it is the plaintiff and his counsel who fail to appear during the retrial. The dismissal will be with prejudice unless otherwise ordered by the court. Also, a failure on the part of the defendant shall cause the plaintiff to present his evidence ex parte within 10 calendar days from termination of the pre-trial and the court to render judgment on the basis of the evidence offered. So if it is the defendant and his counsel that failed to appear during the pre-trial, the plaintiff will be allowed to present his evidence ex parte, meaning without the participation of the defendant. Okay, there is no declaration of default because declaration of default is allowed only if there is a failure to file an answer. What if if the defendant fails to appear during the pretrial conference, okay, the plaintiff will be allowed to present evidence ex parte. So there is the effect of default, but there is no declaration of default. Film Life versus Enario. So in this case, respondent was appointed as agent of Film Life. Upon his resignation, it was discovered that the respondent had an outstanding debt balance of more than ₱1 million. Now, Film Life filed a complaint for collection of sum of money against the respondent. During the pre-trial conference, the respondent failed to appear. The RTC allowed Film Life to present evidence ex parte. Now, the issue is whether or not the RTC erred in declaring respondent in default and allowing Film Life to present its evidence ex parte. Okay. While the order of default no longer obtains, its effects were retained, meaning there is no need to make a declaration of default in case of failure of the defendant to attend the pre-trial conference. But the remedy, the effect of default will be applied to the defendant, meaning the defendant will no longer have the right to participate in the trial and the plaintiff will be allowed to present evidence ex parte. Failure to file a responsive pleading within the reglementary period and not failure to appear at the hearing is the sole ground for an order of default. Failure to appear at a pre-trial wherein the effects of default on the part of the defendant are followed. That is, the plaintiff shall be allowed to present evidence ex parte and a judgment may be rendered against the defendant. If the defendant fails to appear for pre-trial, a default order is no longer issued. Instead, the trial court may allow the plaintiff to proceed with his evidence ex parte, and the court can decide the case based on the evidence presented by the plaintiff. The plaintiff is given the privilege to present his evidence without objection from the defendant, the likelihood being that the court will decide in favor of the plaintiff, the defendant having forfeited the opportunity to rebut or present his own evidence. So you must remember that there is no, if in case of failure of the defendant to appear during the pre-trial, there is no declaration of default. Okay, only the effects of default will be applied. Citibank versus Corpus. For dishonoring credit card transactions, Corpus filed a complaint against Citibank. Now, it was set for pre-trial conference during which Corpus failed to appear despite notice. Okay, now, on Citibank's motion, the trial court dismissed the complaint and directed Citibank to present evidence on its counterclaim. Citibank failed to present evidence. The trial court also dismissed the counterclaim. The appellate court set aside the trial court's order allowing Citibank to present evidence ex parte but upheld the dismissal of the spouse's complaint, holding that they should have filed an appeal instead of a petition or certiorari. Section 5 of Rule 18 provides that the dismissal of an action due to the plaintiff's failure to appear at the pretrial shall be with prejudice unless otherwise ordered by the court. In this case, the trial court deemed the plaintiffs as non-suited and ordered the dismissal of their complaint. As the dismissal was a final order, the proper remedy was to file an ordinary appeal and not a petition for certiorari. So you must remember that when the case is dismissed, on the ground of failure to appear by the plaintiff in the pretrial, the dismissal is with prejudice unless the court otherwise orders in the court states that the dismissal is without prejudice. So pre-trial is mandatory. Being mandatory, the trial court has the discretion to declare a party non-suited. Absent a showing of grave abuse, appellate courts will not interfere. Pascual versus First Consolidated Rural Bank of Bohol. So in this case, Pascual filed a petition for annulment of judgment. Now, instead of filing their pretrial brief, the petitioners filed a motion for summary judgment and motion to hold the pretrial in abeyance. At the scheduled preliminary conference, the petitioners and their counsel did not appear. Petitioners insisted that their motion for summary judgment should be resolved first before holding the pretrial. Considering that a petition for annulment of judgment is an original action before the Court of Appeals, pretrial is mandatory. The filing of a pretrial brief has the same import. The petitioners contend that their motion for summary judgment needs to be resolved first before the pretrial could proceed. A summary judgment is a procedural technique that is proper under Section 3, Rule 35, only if there is no genuine issue as to the existence of a material fact and that the moving party is entitled to judgment as a matter of law. Unless the motion for such judgment has earlier been filed, the pretrial may be the occasion in which the court considers the propriety of rendering judgment on the pleadings or summary judgment. If no such motion was earlier filed, the pretrial judge may then indicate the proper party to initiate the rendition of such judgment by filing the necessary motion. Such motion is required by Rule 34 or 35. The pretrial judge cannot motu proprio render the judgment on the pleadings or summary judgment. The petitioners cannot insist that the CA should have first resolved their motion for summary judgment before holding the pretrial. They could not use the inaction on their motion to justify their non-appearance at the pretrial as well as their inability to file their pretrial brief. Their appearance at the pretrial with their counsel was mandatory. Okay, so you must remember that in all civil and criminal actions, pretrial is mandatory. And even if you have filed a motion for summary judgment, it will not defer or hold in abeyance the pretrial conference. Why? Because that motion can be discussed during the pretrial conference. The propriety of rendering a judgment on the pleading or a motion for summary judgment is one of the issues that can be discussed during the pretrial proceedings. Okay? We have this case of Aguilar versus Lightbringer Credit Cooperative. Okay, so this case originated from 3 complaints for sum of money filed by Lightbringer against Aguilar. So on the scheduled pretrial conference, only the respondent appeared. Now the trial court issued an order allowing the respondent to present evidence ex parte. So Aguilar insisted that they should have the right to cross-examine the witness of the respondent. Now, the issue is whether or not a party who had been declared as in default might still participate in the trial of the case. Okay. Instead of a defendant being declared as in default by reason of his non-appearance, this spells out the procedure would be to allow the ex parte presentation of plaintiff's evidence and the rendition of judgment on the basis thereof. The purpose is one of semantical propriety or terminological accuracy, as there were criticisms on the use of the word default, since that term is identified with failure to file an answer, not appearance in court. The plaintiff is given the privilege to present his evidence without objection from the defendant, the likelihood being that the court will decide in favor of the plaintiff, the defendant having forfeited the opportunity to rebut or present his own evidence. It is thus mandatory for the trial court to conduct pre-trial in civil cases in order to realize the paramount objective of simplifying, abbreviating, and expediting trial. So there is no need for a declaration of default, but the effects of default will be applied. So since the proceedings were being heard ex parte, Aguilar had no right to participate and cross-examine the witnesses. The court can only consider the evidence on record offered by the respondent. Petitioners lost their right to present evidence during the trial and on appeal due to their disregard of the mandatory attendance in the pre-trial conference. Let us now go to pre-trial brief. Before the pre-trial, at least 3 calendar days, the parties will submit their respective pre-trial briefs, which shall contain the following: a concise statement of the case and the reliefs prayed for, summary of the admitted facts, and proposed stipulation of facts, main factual and legal issues, propriety of referral of factual issues to commissioners, documents or other objects, evidence to be marked, names of witnesses, summary of their respective testimonies, brief statement of the points of law, and citation of authorities. Remember that failure to file a pre-trial brief shall have the same effect as failure to appear in the pre-trial conference. We have the case of Durban Apartments versus Pioneer Insurance. So Pioneer, by right of subrogation, filed with the RTC a complaint for recovery of damages against Durban Apartments. So during the pre-trial conference, the counsel for Pioneer was present. However, the counsel for Durban Apartments was absent. Instead, a certain counsel appeared for Durban but did not file their pre-trial brief. Now, the issue is whether the lower courts erred in declaring petitioner as in default for failure to appear at the pre-trial conference and to file a pre-trial brief. Rule 18 leaves no room for equivocation. Appearance of parties and counsel at the pre-trial, along with the filing of the pre-trial brief, is mandatory. It allows only 2 exceptions. First, there is a valid excuse. And second, the appearance of a representative must be fully authorized in writing. Consistently with the mandatory character of the pre-trial, the rules oblige not only the lawyers, but the parties as well to appear before the court, and when a party fails to appear, he may be non-suited or considered as in default. The obligation to appear denotes not simply the personal appearance or the mere physical presentation of oneself, but connotes preparedness to go to the different subjects assigned by law to a pre-trial. That is the purpose why the law requires a pre-trial brief to ensure that the parties, when they come to the pre-trial conference, are equipped with the basic knowledge of the case and a submission of the case to amicable settlement if needed. Okay. Um, However, it does not mean that it will result in a judgment in favor of the plaintiff. The plaintiff must still substantiate the allegations in its complaint. After the termination of the pretrial, okay, a pretrial order will be issued by the court. Now, what are the contents of the pretrial order? Contains an enumeration of the admitted facts, minutes of the pretrial, legal and factual issues, applicable laws and jurisprudence, the evidence marked, the specific trial dates, case flow chart, which shall contain the different stages of the proceedings up to the promulgation of the decision, a statement that the one-day examination of witness and the most important witness rule shall be strictly followed, statement that the court shall render judgment on the pleadings or of a summary judgment as the case may be. Okay, the contents of the pretrial order shall control the subsequent proceedings unless modified before trial to prevent manifest injustice. Can there be judgment after pretrial? The court shall motu proprio include in the pretrial order that the case may be submitted for summary judgment or judgment on the pleadings on any of the following instances. There are no controverted facts. There are no genuine issues as to any material fact. There is no issue at all. The answer fails to tender an issue. In such a case, there is no more need to submit position papers, and the judgment shall be rendered within 90 days from the termination of the pretrial. Okay? Court-annexed mediation. Now, court-annexed mediation as well as judicial dispute resolution is part of the pretrial conference. The period for court-annexed mediation shall not exceed 30 calendar days without further extension. Now, are all cases required to be referred for judicial dispute resolution? The answer is no. Only if the judge to which the case was originally raffled is convinced that settlement is still possible, the case may be referred to another court for judicial dispute resolution. It will be conducted within a period of 15 calendar days from notice of failure of the court annex mediation. If the JDR still fails, trial shall proceed on the dates agreed upon. Okay. Judgment after pre-trial, if there are no controverted facts, no genuine issues as to material fact, or absence of any issue, or if the answer fails to tender an issue, the court shall, without prejudice to a party moving for judgment on the pleadings or summary judgment, motu proprio include in the pre-trial order that the case be submitted for summary judgment or judgment on the pleadings without need of position papers. The order of the court to submit the case for judgment shall not be subject to appeal or certiorari. So that is all for pre-trial. Thank you for listening.